And we're back. It's time now for us to turn some pages. Yes, we're moving into the next chapter. This morning, we'll be dealing with some poetry. In fact, it's a poet tree. So let's find out exactly what Kieran Isaac has on his branches. Now, poetry is the debut presentation from poet Kieran Isaac, which features his thoughts, experiences, covering several things in life, learning, love, and culture. He is giving you the Trinbagonian perspective and also enlightening international readers as to what Trinidad has to offer. Good morning to you, Kieran, and let's start climbing.
Good morning. Thanks so much for having me.
Not a problem, always a pleasure. Now, the pandemic would have blocked four medical school transfers for you, and you also got some sad news about your grandfather during the time, and that caused the ink to flow from your pen. Walk us through it.
Yeah, definitely. So as you said, I'm actually a medical student, and I had one school transfer which turned into four because they got blocked for various reasons in the earlier half of the pandemic. And while I was maneuvering that, we found out the news that my granddad had stage four prostate cancer. Ultimately, he lost his battle. But throughout that whole process, it was extremely challenging. I felt like I was battling to save two things, and I felt like I had lost them both at one point. I know my mom throughout the process, sometimes I would not say how I felt, but my face would say. So my mom, she told me, she said, "Your face is telling me everything you want." She said, "What's up?" And she said, "How about we use this time to do something you love?" And it didn't click right away, but moms repeat stuff, so she repeated it, and eventually it clicked. Apart from medicine, I love language and literature. I grew up asthmatic, so I read a lot, and I'd always wanted to publish a poetry collection, but I never had the inspiration. Flash forward to this twin-year pandemic turning into more. I finally had both. I was like, okay, God, this is not how I wanted the time to do this, but I'll take it. And I took it and I ran with it, and I started to gather my thoughts, and it became quite therapeutic and cathartic to put my thoughts to paper. So that was it. Was it? I kind of call it turning a pandemic into art because I was able to translate my feelings onto paper.
Now, tell us about the name and selecting poet tree. What brought that up as your title for the collection?
I'm a kind of person when I'm brainstorming, I go all in. So when I figured out that I wanted to write a poetry collection, I think I was listening to like some music, and as I usually get my inspiration, and it just clicked, and I was like, I said, poetry. I said, Kieran, this makes so much sense. Write that down right now. So I wrote it down, and the rest was history. I said, okay, great. I immediately knew what I wanted the cover to look like as well. So I called my friend Antonia Figaro. She goes by Arts by Antonia on Instagram, and she's super talented. I said, okay, so I'm gonna write a book, and I needed to paint the cover, but I forgot that she had a day job, so I'm like excited, and she's like, Kieran, I'm gonna work out, call you back later. So she did, and so this is the cover she came up with. So it's a guy under a tree, and the leaves are actually pages flying in the wind. So those are my thoughts. And then I worked with Shelley Ann Edwards Barron of Weed Edits, WERD, as my editor. And it became this beautiful curation. My aunt is a author as well, and she always says, when the muse hits you, right? So the muse would hit, and I'd be like at the beach, and I'd see like two senior ladies walking down, enjoying life, and I'm like, wow, that song was like a poem. So I named the poem Tanti One and Tanti Two, and it was like inspiration from them. Or I'd be like, Max, I love it was different collections about. There's a section on family, culture, affirmations, which I needed, but I think other people would need as well. nature, which I love. So it's so many things that interplay. So I feel like the title was very apt because poetry, all these branches that make up who I am. So it was an introduction to me. And I also feel that my mom always says a song isn't a song until it touches your heart. So I feel like in connecting to the pieces myself, I think in tune other people would connect to them.
Did you write any works pertaining to your grandfather and the memories you would have shared and the loss and so on as well?
Put a piece called My Son John, but it's not in this collection. Um, it felt a little too heavy to release it so soon, but I did recite it at his memorial, and it was well received. I may include it in another publication I'm doing because the book has turned into a trilogy. Because now I can't stop writing, so I may include it in that. But I read it for my family, and they all loved it.
I'm hoping that the writing is not overshadowing the medical studies.
Right? No, right. So no. So as long as things work out how I plan, I would definitely plan to be back on track. But I in this, I guess I'm calling it free time. I told myself, when else am I going to get this much free time? So I want to see how this book and two others should do, and I think by hopefully by mid next year, I should be back on track, and it will be even greater to be able to channel whatever funds I gather from this back into medical school.
Yeah, that's the right direction to be going in, Kiran. Now, in terms of getting it out there, not only to Tobago, to Trinidad, what about the rest of the Caribbean? How are you and your publisher looking to get it into the hands of the region?
Right. So yeah. So what I did, I got it on Amazon and Kindle because now we have the world at our fingertips. So you have to use everything to your advantage. So yes, I was able to get it on Amazon and Kindle, so that's opened up new doors for me. So that's pretty exciting. So if you go on Amazon or Kindle and you type in poetry, Kieran Isaac, it's right there, which is exciting. And yeah, as you said, it moves to the fingertips of people beyond the country, which is exciting.
Okay, now you also talk about learning and love. What are some of your favorite pieces in there that deal with that?
Oh yeah, so there's a lot. So like I have the book right here. So there's a couple that I love the most. So there's one called Blacklisted, which I wrote kind of about the treatment of the Black lives in the U.S. That was something that plagued the world with all the killings of these gentlemen. Balloon Envy, which is my poem, is kind of like a reflection on, you have like these balloons at parties and they signify these grand moments, but what happens beyond the spectacular celebration, the balloons represent so much joy and celebration, but when it's all gone, what's next? So then there's also one called It Glittered Too Bad It Wasn't Gold, which is about like me. They always say that it glittered, but it's not gold. So it's like about learning people for who they are and realizing that, everything is not really what it seems with some people. So it's a lot of different life lessons. And, I try to encapsulate as much as possible.
And I think the pandemic would have brought us through a lot of that in terms of knowing who we could rely on, especially in times when you may have had COVID and needed to get that medicine or those groceries. So, it really let you know where the strength of your branch is laid during that particular time. Now, you had mentioned that you're already working on another volume. When are you looking to release that?
Yeah, so like I said, I saw a costume that really inspired a second collection. I was speaking with my friend and one of my teachers about initially the book was very and it wasn't intentional. It was kind of like pop culture centered, I guess, because at the earlier parts of the pandemic, you're like binging all these shows, so I guess naturally it came across. But quite naturally, I started writing more about my own culture. So I'm really excited that the next collection is on our folklore and really traditional. carnival mask characters. So it's I could say it's about 90% complete in terms of writing. But the funny thing is that I realized with my editor, even after I click submit, I still submit work. So we'll see how that goes. But it should be released, I'd say, before the end of the year. So that was exciting.
Okay, it sounds that way, and I hope you have some exciting illustrations accompanying the
Hopefully.
works as well. Well, Kiran, it was a pleasure to have you here on Morning Barbados this morning. Always a pleasure knowing that our Caribbean people are still interested and passionate about writing, even when they have other professions that they are seeming toward. Again, congratulations on your book, and I wish you a thrilling Tuesday.
Thank you so much for having me. It meant a lot, and all the best to you as well and all of the viewers. Much love.
Much love. Thank you so much. That was Kieran Isaac there from Trinidad and Tobago. Now, also today,